Before we get started with the show, here's a quick word from our sponsor, Global Training Center. As trade compliance professionals, you want to make sure that your procedures and documentation are completed as correctly as possible to avoid any delays and possible fines. We provide a range of trade compliance courses that will fit your needs. From in-person or web training to recorded on-demand courses, we can train one or even thousands on your team through your learning platform or on our portal. We can even customize a private session for your team. Go to globaltrainingcenter.com to find out more.
Hello, everyone. This is Lalo, obviously, from Simply Trade. So listen, no Andy, but big surprise here. We have a big group, huge group. We have at least 5 companies represented here. But what we're doing is that we are going to talk about the brokers' continuing education requirement for 2025, and of course, moving forward from there. And I emphasize 2025 because there's a lot of confusion. Can I start earning now? And can I start creating like an account so that, et cetera? So anyway, this is going to be, if you're a broker, if you're a U.S. Customs licensed broker, this is going to be your go-to video or audio to learn everything and anything there is to know about the continuing education credits for licensed brokers. So I just need to lobby and see if CBP will put this permanently on their website. But anyway, just joking. So anyway, so let's see. So we're going to have, as many of you may know or not know, surprisingly enough, and I'll bring that up here in a little bit when Cynthia comes on, but there's some organizations that have not let their members know too much information about the broker requirement. I guess they figure we'll wait till January. Sometimes it's not going to be too late. Of course, you still got 2 years for that. But so what happened is that, of course, CBP created a program where now brokers are going to need to create to have continuing education points or credits. This means they're just leveling up and going up to the standards of, like real estate agents need continuing education, doctors and lawyers and accountants, et cetera. So now customs brokers will need to go through similar criteria. So they worked on this program for 2, maybe 3 years. And again, we'll get a little bit more of history on that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in each of the companies. There's 5 accreditors that are doing pretty much taking courses from companies like Global Training Center, like us. And we submit to these organizations and we say, hey, tell me how many points somebody's going to earn, based on whatever my curriculum, the learning format or platform, because there's e-learning, there's live training, there's hybrid training, there's conferences, there's you name it, but we'll go through that. Again, this is going to be every question that you might have. This is where you're going to get the answers. So anyway, so we have 5 organizations that were picked, that were screened and picked by CBP. We have, in alphabetical order, we have EMTC, and that's Marianne Routen has been on our show before. So, you'll recognize her and her organization. We have ICPA, and of course, everybody has heard the episodes that we've had from ICPA as well. NEI, again, everybody's heard of all these, okay, because they've been on our show in one way or another. But NEI is the NCBFAA Educational Institute. Cynthia Wittenberg is representing them. Sandler and Travis in Rosenberg. We have Paula. And of course, y'all probably remember more probably like Lenny. He's been on our show, Lenny Feldman. So again, represented here in this group. And then lastly, TrüTrade. So TrüTrade Solutions is Trudy, of course. Everybody knows her because she is an instructor with Global Training Center, but she has also run around a lot in different podcasts and circles here with us as well. So let's start with, we're going to have everyone introduce themselves, the company that they represent, and maybe just a little bit of information on them, like what makes them unique in representing and their perspective of continuing education, and why you as a educator may want to go with them to get your courses accredited. By the way, we're going to go through all this, but you can go we'll talk about it some more. It's basically they all have a framework that they need to work around. But let's do that. Okay, well, Marianne, I'll let you start, and then we'll let Karen also add some more color commentary, and you tell us about your organization over at the e-learning. I'm sorry, e-merchants, not e-learning. I'm in e-learning mode here. Anyway, go ahead.
Thanks, Lalo. So eMerchants Trade Council, we started in 2021, but anybody who knows me knows that I've been somewhat obsessed with training for global trade professionals throughout my career. When I was an international trade attorney at Canton Mutual, when I was at AEI. And so it's something that I've looked at for many years and looked at different models of how to do it. And fortunately, I worked with Karen Kelly, who was chair of AEI 2017-2019, and helped me form EMTC for the e-commerce industry, which has very different trade issues, but they still need to know certain things about trade. And, we come from a multidisciplinary approach. I'm a New York licensed attorney, so I've always had continuing education. I'm also an adjunct professor at the University of Illinois, Chicago, teaching trade and homeland security. And so when Karen joined me, we knew this had to be a component of what we wanted to offer people, not only trade professionals, but people like e-sellers who need to know something about cross-border trade, but we knew we weren't going to make them into trade nerds. So we had the good fortune of partnering with an entity in Australia called Global Trade Professional Alliance. And in February of this year, we launched a Global Trade Professionals program certification. It's an ISO-based program. So ISO 17024. And it is designed to be an entire life cycle program for trade professionals. When CBP issued the RFP seeking accreditors for the LCB continuing education program, we applied because we already had the infrastructure set up from the Global Trade Professionals program. And so we felt very confident that our online system could handle the LCB program.
I am a licensed broker. I have spent most of my career in-house as opposed to working for a brokerage firm. Marianne and I partnered to start the EMTC. As she mentioned, we work with another entity for our platform. And that platform meets very high standards and is actually used in a number of universities around the world. So we have it was developed actually by someone out of MIT. So it's a very polished and very highly automated program that makes it very easy for an educator to come in and submit his documentation or her documentation. I think that kind of sums it up. I mean, it's state of the art and constantly being updated so that we are always using current technology.
So our next group is ICPA, and with ICPA we have Elizabeth Sherrill, and so again, y'all, if you run around those circles with ICPA, you'll definitely know who she is. There's two very distinctive things. She never stops at the conferences. If you ever go to an ICPA conference, so actually that might be hard to find her because she's literally just moving everywhere. And secondly, she's the tallest person there. Her and Lenny Feldman. You're going to find
the
them.
whole STR group, actually, Lalo. I joke with Mark Segrist, and I said, you have to be over 6'2" to work here, I think, because even Josh Rodman was. So that's pretty funny. Yeah. Yeah, they are. I like it. It makes me feel more normal. Thank you.
Perfect. So what about ICPA? Can you let us know a little bit more about ICPA and the why y'all decided to be accreditors?
Oh gosh. Well, I think I have to give most of the credit, the big portion of it, to Lisa Gelsomina, who wasn't able to be here today. It was her really that pushed for it. And initially, I was reluctant because we're so small. We're doing so much all the time, as you well know, like 29 webinars a year and 6 events on 3 continents. And so to have really 1 or 2 people working and doing all that, I didn't want to take on anything else. I mean, if it wasn't for Lisa and her research and her ability to present the information, I don't know that we would have moved forward with it. But in retrospect, it would have been silly for us not to be part of the 5, right? Because we, as you know, we do a lot of educating. So, like I said, you have that many events and you're doing so much, you really have to consider your role just as a partner for it. And certainly that is something we advocate for, because our whole mission statement is the professional development of trade compliance individuals. That's our whole goal. The networking, we don't lobby, as you well know. We're not invested in any of that. We're simply invested in the individual, the person sitting behind the desk doing the work. That's our passion too, right? I'd like the high school kids to know about trade compliance. So, I think that's how we fell into this, and we're excited and grateful to be a part of it.
Next up, and speaking of lobbyists, because this group is a big lobby group that advocates for the broker community as well as other, overlapping industries. So we're talking about NEI. This is the NCBFAA Education Institute. They've been around for a long time. They also put on some great conferences. They have several during the year. They're all branded very differently. So we'll bring in Cynthia. Welcome, Cynthia.
Hi, Lalo, and thanks for having me this Friday afternoon before holiday week. So I am the current Executive Vice President for the NCBFAA Educational Institute. One thing I would like to try to differentiate is that my side of the house does not get involved in lobbying. So that's more the membership side. And my focus is continuing education for those in the industry. This wonderful, dynamic industry that most folks of my generation, we fell into it. So like Elizabeth has pointed out, how do we get this out to the next generation of saying, hey, this is a pretty cool career choice. Think about it, dip your toe in, and you'll get the bug like the rest of us. The NEI has been, my career has been with Customs and Border Protection for over 32 years, but the last 3 years or so I've been with the NEI. And the NEI brings a long history of leading the way in continuing education for those in the industry and really getting folks started with kind of foundational knowledge for operating in the industry. And the NEI has been about it for 19 years. And we have our certifications that many of you in the industry are familiar with, the Certified Customs Specialist and Certified Export Specialist. And we worked most recently with the NAFTZ, the National Association of Foreign Trade Zones, to create a Certified Zone Specialist, along with our masters and other courses. Elizabeth did bring up a good point which I think is pretty neat about the 5 of us is that we all also happen to be content providers, educational providers. And as she mentioned in the rule, we can't accredit our own content. But one thing I want to say before you move on about this group of working together, and we've been working together since July very closely with CBP. And we've been working together very collegially. We get together, we have some laughs, but we are about the business of making sure what we do is uniform across the 5 of us. We want it to be consistent for those of you who are content providers. So the process should be very similar from one to the other. And I'll leave it at that for now. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Cynthia. So let's now bring in, so our next group is Sandler, Travis, and Rosenberg, very affectionately known by everybody as STNR. We have gotten to know them quite a bit here in the last maybe 6 months to 9 months, I've been running in a lot to other people within the organization at STNR. And we have been collaborating and doing some work with them as well. But so coming up now, we have Paula, who is representing STNR. Hey, Paula.
Hey, Lalo. Thank you so much for having me on today. This is really a thrill. I've heard so much about Simply Trade, and it's great to be part of the program. And just to kind of follow up on Elizabeth's discussion of height in the STR, I will say that fortunately I do measure up at about 5'9", so I would say that I guess maybe I'm tall enough to be part of the STR crowd. Although I will say when I stand next to Lenny or any of these other tall guys, Mark Segrist, I don't feel so tall. But I just a little bit of my background. Obviously FTNR is a law firm. But one thing I want to mention about STNR, we are really all about education as well. I know we are a law firm and we perform legal services, but we have a very robust offering of various types of webinars and trainings and things like that. I want to follow up on what Cynthia said. The 5 organizations, we have all the same goal, have your materials accredited. Let's get continuing education up and running and let's try to educate brokers and, again, encourage people to get into this industry. So although in some ways you can say that we are competitors, we are in this to basically help CBP to get this program up and running. And that's, what we're looking for. We really want to help CBP to get this going. And it's been a really enjoyable, 4 or 5 months working together with all the other creditors and the great people at CBP.
Last but not least, as they say, is Miss Trudy Wilson. She's from TrüTrade Solutions.
Thank you, Lalo. Thank you for having me yet again on Simply Trade podcast. It's always fun to come and hang out with you guys and talk about trade stuff. But to give everybody a little bit of background about Trudy and TrüTrade. So I am a licensed customs broker. Been in the industry for a while. Actually started on the customs brokerage / freight forwarding side. And so it warms my heart to know that we now have this program, a really formalized program for brokers, because like I mentioned in the podcast before, is that, there wasn't anything formal all the way with customs. It's like once you get your license, that was great. And we love that, right? Because it is a lot of work to get our license. And any one of us that have our license, which most of us on here do, we're so proud of it. And everybody should be proud of getting your license. But now we're taking it one step further. We're elevating the requirements. And so that's really exciting to be a part of it. As far as TrüTrade throwing their hat in the ring for this project, it was one of those things where like, okay, what's there to lose? Let's try and let's see what happens. And we were, overjoyed. We're like, oh my gosh, they picked us. This is great. This is awesome. So in a lot of ways, we feel like the little train that could, because I think of all of us, we were probably the smallest organization. So we feel like the little train that could, and we did it. And so we're super excited to partner with all of the groups. We all work together, and it's been an amazing journey with this group, mostly ladies, but it's been an amazing journey, and we've all learned a lot through it. And I think we're all very proud of the program that we've worked hand in hand with Customs, and the ladies at Customs have been awesome as well, the team at Customs, but we've worked hand in hand with them to create a program that we're all very proud of, and we're all excited to watch it grow and blossom from here.
So let's look at this and let's start talking a little bit more about the program. Number one, we've attended and or have heard or seen several, maybe like on LinkedIn, or we've been to a conference here and there since the big announcement came down. I believe it was November 1, if I'm not mistaken, of people saying, my courses are accredited. You can start earning points now. You can, whatever the case may be. Number one, it was a little challenging to understand how a course can be accredited on October 31st, November 1. I mean, it could have been, I guess, November 1, just right out of the gate. But the funny thing is that they say, attend my session. It's in November, whatever. I think it's this week, actually. And you'll earn points. Well, obviously, I know, of course, here as Global Training Center, we've had to get educated on all of this because all our courses are going to be accredited. Well, all our courses that apply towards the CEs will be accredited. But the challenge was trying to understand or relay that to our clients, for example, our brokers. So here's the difference. We have clients that are brokers, but they work for a company, an importer-exporter, for example. They're not a licensed broker with a firm that they are doing, they're clearing shipments for clients. They're doing it for themselves inside the company, or maybe not. Maybe they're just there because of their expertise, because they've got a license. Trudy, I mean, most of the guests here talked about how they have a license and may have worked for an organization, not necessarily for a broker, clearing stuff for other companies. But anyway, so let's talk a little bit about that and figure out a little bit as to why or how, when the program starts, when you can start earning points, and how can someone like me, Global Training Center, who is an educator, can start getting accredited for their courses?
Yeah, so the Federal Register notice, as you indicated, was issued on November 1st and basically set an effective date, an implementation date of January 1st. So we have this interregnum period between November 1st and December 31st, and that's to allow education providers to submit courses that they would like accredited to any of us 5 accreditors so that they can begin offering those courses from January 1st. Each course that is accredited will be accredited for 1 year. So any of the courses that we have approved right now, we set the start date as January 1st, 2025, and an expiration date of December 31st, 2025. Okay. So that's how the timeline works. It was really to provide the education providers an opportunity for marketing purposes to get their courses in. And also for us as accreditors, we did do testing with each other to test our systems that they worked, but we also wanted to have a real life, accreditation happening before the January 1st deadline.
Well, we also, it's very important for educators to submit their training now, because you want to enable actually our brokers, our LCBs, to be able to start their training processes as early as possible. Obviously not January 1, but, in that first week after the holiday, and to be able to earn those credits, not having worked for a broker, but having actually done an in-house brokerage operation. You have peaks and troughs, and they want to be able to schedule it. And even if you're thinking about doing courses in the spring, I would encourage you to do it now so that we can help. EMTC is helping to get those lists out on our website so that people can schedule them and know, oh yes, I have these opportunities at this point in time. And, I have downtime then because it's not my busiest season. And again, for a broker, it depends on what industry you deal with. So getting those opportunities out to the brokers so that they can schedule, as well as getting yours out and getting your educational opportunities advertised to the brokers where they are going, particularly if they're going to happen in the first quarter of the year. I think it's important to work on those now.
And that's a very good point. That's the reason why Global Training Center was very quick in trying to get ours out, because we actually have printed brochures, throwback, and we those printed and we advertise our schedules 6 months in advance. And so that's the reason why we had to get like quickly start getting accredited?
We do have a schedule. As a group of accreditors, as everybody said, would work well together, and we determined that our turn times are 4 days. But, we need to get that volume through. So while you may have a 4-day turn time, you also may have questions. We may have questions, and we encourage that you give us 2 weeks because we have experience back and forth with the educators to help them answer questions of what they need to present and what documents are appropriate.
Elizabeth, you mentioned earlier you have a lot of events. You have conferences all over the U.S. and now, of course, all over the world. You're obviously going to want to apply for continuing education credit points, but you cannot self-certify, correct?
Yes, I've already applied for the one in March, our annual one. I think we'll probably get 12 to 14. It just depends. It's easier when you have 6 tracks, right? Because then you're talking about 6 hours in one block, 6 sessions in 1 hour that could potentially have one that hits the requirements, right? So, and then we applied for it for Europe. Our data groups meetings, we also apply for because a lot of our local group meetings are like a 45 minutes to 1 hour kind of a lunch and learn. So we've started applying for it for that. We understand how important this is to the LCBs, right? And so anytime we can, we feel like something would fit into the criteria, which we know very well now because we've been I think it was Cynthia that mentioned it, the SOP and all the meetings, I got to know these people really well. So we kind of know as accreditors what is going to qualify. So
I feel this brings confidence to the learning community, like the brokers in this case, in that they now know that you're not just throwing a tag up there that says I'm certified, just to say you're certified for your own course. That's what I mean. You're having to go through the process that like we do to get certified, even though you are an accreditor. You know what I'm saying? And so that's a good thing. I really like that happened. I know that was very early on, 2 or 3 years ago when they brought it out for public comment. I know that was one of the big questions that people were commenting on. And again, as an educator, I felt that was really important, and I really like that. But I do want to ask you. So I have been noticing going to the different last few conferences for ICPA. I've been noticing these little iPads popping up everywhere outside the classrooms. Can you comment on that as to why you all are doing that? And
yes, the iPad. That was such a disaster. What a thing to implement. So, yes, we have, if you come to our event, you get a little QR code that's you, right? Like, it's your own little code, and it means it tracks Lalo through the event when he scans in. And so what we thought we were going to be able to do early on, because our software allows for tracking, right? We thought we were going to be able to say to CBP, hey, Lalo not only came in person and he attended 14 hours worth of sessions by scanning that QR code on his badge as he went into the session, but he also was able to go back because we do. I'm so sorry. Yes, my dog is wants to give his opinion. We also, I apologize. Sorry. I know you can cut it out if you have to. Okay. We have on-demand replay. And so we have it for 60 days. And I was thinking in my head, this is great. Lalo can go back and watch 10 more sessions and then he'll get 24 points. No. And it makes sense. Why not? In retrospect, now that we've built out this SOP, it makes a lot of sense because there's just so many things that you can track. But we're still keeping the little codes and we're still keeping the kiosks because I do think it's important. If you're in this position and you are trying to move your way, say, up the leadership ladder, I don't care what industry you're in, because I didn't start out in this industry. I started out in veterinary medicine for 20 years. So like if you're at a conference and you have a pet question, you want to ask me, go ahead. I mean, I did this for 20 years. And in a crazy turn of events, veterinary technicians were kind of in the same boat because they were not regulated, but they would go to these events and they would learn things that were really important to their everyday business, right? We were learning how to better treat animals and put catheters in better. better. And so I know by being in this industry for 8 years and sitting at lunch with these people, and like Cynthia said, we joke about everybody falling into this industry. I know these people and I understand their struggle is like they are passionate about their spreadsheets, right? Oh my gosh, the trade compliance professional loves their spreadsheets, and they're all very organized people, and they're going to these events and they really do care about the education they're getting. And so we still as an organization will be able to print you what is a certificate that says exactly how many hours you consumed of continuing education as far as trade compliance topics go. It will not be the number that CBP will give you. It won't be the same, but it's okay. Like, it's okay for Lalo to get 12 points from CBP and 12 points for NEI to go towards this license, but then still be able to get a certificate of completion to send to his boss that says, but I actually watched 26 hours. I can prove that, through our software. And so I think it's good for professional development enhancement, that kind of thing. I guess that was kind of a long way to get there, but hopefully it makes sense, why we are tracking these things, why we think it's important,
No, I agree that is a very, very good point, because as Global Training Center, when we do webinars, we require a webcam on the attendees. And obviously before COVID, it was a little weird, right? People were not, now everybody turns it on by default. So, but we did that for two reasons. Number one, if we're going to issue continuing education credit points, we need to make sure it's you that attending and not your assistant or someone else. And B, that you're not just turning on the webinar and you're leaving for the whole day. You know what I mean? You need to know that you're there, and that's your version of it when you're holding people accountable. So that's really, really good. So no, exactly. I totally get it.
I just invested a lot of time and energy into the program, so we're keeping it. Basically, we bought a lot of, we're keeping it. And for those, 10% of us that track our hours, we'll be able to have that stuff. So yeah, I thank you for mentioning that. I forgot about that, that we did that. So
exactly. So, okay, no problem. So now, where to start with Cynthia? I mean, I have a few other questions because of Cynthia, because of your background, Cynthia, how you came from CBP and the government sector. I want to also kind of touch on that. Let's start with that, Cynthia, is that us as a private company that are providing education, NEI or NCBFAA and NEI offer conferences like ICPA and all pretty much everybody here, Sandler and Travis does the same. So does the EMTC, et cetera. They offer either webinars or training and all that. So most of it tends to be paid. Of course, that we need to somehow sustain that model. But can you talk about the government agencies or partner government agencies that are also available to award continuing education credit points?
Yes, that's a great point. But before I answer that question, a couple of things. Elizabeth, thank you for that unpaid advertisement. And I'm soon to give her a set of pom-poms for the industry. She is certainly a cheerleader for the trade industry. So we're going to award her some pom-poms for that. And Lalo, I didn't know that you were so full of all these fun facts about different things, the university, the Fab Five, and all those things. So keep them coming. Keep them coming. And you doing Andy proud.
And I always tell people that I'm pretty good at Trivia Pursuit because I have all this worthless information in my head that doesn't. I mean, anyway, but go ahead.
Hey, keep it coming. And then one other thing on the period that we're in, that's a unique period that Marianne and Karen talked about, where we have this room to accredit content in the future for January 1. Which is great. And that the reg couldn't be effective any sooner than 60 days anyway. So it was nice that Customs published it early November. That gave us 60 days instead of 30. But one thing, if you're a content provider, I want you to think about, I know everybody's like rushing to the gate, but remember your approval and your your accreditation is good for 1 calendar year. So if it's effective January 1, it's going to be expiring on New Year's Eve. So keep that in mind. So I'm telling folks, unless you absolutely need it, January 1, you might want to think about maybe mid-January. So you're not worrying about that if it's something that occurs or it's a static course that needs to be reaccredited for the next year, unless you actually need it on the first, you might want to wait a week or two if your event is later, so that if it's a static course or on-demand content, that it wouldn't expire until into 26, well into the year. So something to think about for January. Customs. So it makes sense that the government is automatically accrediting their trade content. CBP is working on the mechanics of that and how it would be communicated to those in the industry. CBP is also working with other partner government agencies to make sure that they're aware that their content will automatically be accredited, but they will have to in turn work with Elena Ryan's group, with Sherry McCann and Heather Cheshire. So they're working on that process. CBP is also getting the word out to their field offices. So we know that places like Detroit has trade days, and El Paso or Laredo has trade days. If those trade days are sponsored by the government, by CBP, then CBP is responsible for communicating the unique identification code for that event and making sure that that is sent to those who attend those events. Now, on the flip side is, if, let's say, it's a port day or a trade day that is hosted by an association, then the association would then in turn be responsible for getting that event accredited. So CBP is working. I know they're working to post more information as it comes relevant or comes available on the website. That's a good place to go. If you Google Licensed Customs Broker Continuing Education Program, or CBP LCB Continuing Education Program, you'll see a lot of information on their webpage regarding focus to the broker, as well as to content providers, educational providers, and accreditors. So thanks for that question.
Sure, no problem. And I guess as a follow-up, because of still going with the government requirements, what exactly are the number of credits or points that anybody needs to earn in any given period? Like maybe you might want to explain what a triennial is and all that kind of good stuff, because I know people were a little confused about that.
Okay, especially for those who may be new to getting or earning their customs broker license, CBP every 3 years has a reporting that's basically used to, I think, purge records and make sure that brokers are still out there. And they've been doing this for decades. You update your address and contact information, and they pretty much want to know you're still out there, you're alive, and hold your license. So now, when the triennial reporting, the next one, which will be due no later than February 1, 2027, the broker will have to not only report all of their, address, email, all that updated information, they will also have to attest by checking a box that they have earned the requisite credits. For this current triennial that we are in, the number of credits will be 20. So CBP, they could have said 25 because there's 25 months left, but they said 20. They're being pretty gracious, I think, this first triennial period. So brokers will have 25 months to accrue 20 credits. Thereafter, it would be 36 credits over the triennial period. So, it's not per year for the LCBs. However, if you're with a certified customs specialist and you are participating in our program, ours is a yearly requirement of 15 credits, and the criteria is aligned. So you would be well ahead of the game because you're earning 15 a year. You're not waiting until the last minute, which is great. But I'm sure there's going to be people who wait till the last minute to get their 36 credits. But if you're, again, one of our designees, you're going to be earning along the way. So you'd be in a very good place to meet the requirement.
So let's go with our next information here. So let me see. So Paula, Okay, so you spoke earlier about how you're the only law firm who is doing accreditation, and how you also offer courses, et cetera, for the trade community. And in your case, you do the broker exam prep course. So let's talk a little bit about why or how is it that going through all this process, the legal process, let's say, of and you know, I'm not asking for an attorney's point of view or anything, but as they build the program, CBP build the program, they took, again, you know, a couple, 2 to 3 years, although they've been talking about it for years and years now, but they formally announced it and they put it up for public, you know, comment, et cetera. How is it? And then that's what I like about this whole group is that every time I talk to any one of the individuals of the group, it's like, oh yeah, I know so-and-so. And hey, she's my bud now. And hey, you know, we've been talking and et cetera. You know, it's really nice to see that. How is it that, how did CBP come to where they are now, determining how they're going to accredit the classes, how they're going to set their criteria? Did they take input from all 5 of you, or did they just say, "Hey, here's a criteria, go at it"? You know what I mean? Like what kind of collaborative effort was there behind that?
That's a great question. It was complete collaboration. I will say this: I think CBP looked for input from all 5 accreditors. We actually spent, I think, 3 days in a conference room together in Virginia. And really kind of just banged out the program. I think we all have different backgrounds, different ways to look at things. You know, obviously the criteria was the biggest thing. And I can remember sitting in that room and we had whiteboards with topics, and it was, you know, it was just really a great experience to get through. And, you know, I think CBP realized that they would not be able to handle this accreditation themselves. And it was very important that they had people, you know, again, who were knowledgeable, who could, again, look at the topics. I know Mary Ann spoke earlier about what's required for accreditation. You know, again, you would contact an accreditor. And the idea here is that we're going to look at the 4 criteria. We're going to look at the particular program in question and make sure it meets the criteria. That's the first thing. And then from there, you know, we kind of go on. But it really was a lot of collaboration between, you know, a lot of really bright people with great ideas. I do want to just mention one thing that I think that CBP would be very happy if I mention it on the call today. CBP is trying very hard to make sure that all LCBs understand that this continuing education rule is in effect. And I know we have weekly and biweekly calls with broker management and Elena going through everything. And they are really concerned that they feel that there are some LCBs who may not be aware of this. So they actually sent out an email today to, I believe, around 13,000 licensed customs brokers, because one of the things that, you know, we were concerned about, you know, obviously CBP has sent out CSMS messages and they have information on their website, but to the, you know, we talked about earlier, you may have LCBs who are not actually working in a brokerage business. They may be working for importers. I actually have a daughter and I have a sister who are both LCBs, but both of them work for importers. They don't get CSMS messages. And I confirmed with them today. I said, just want to check, did you get that email from CBP? And, you know, they were both said, yep, we know who to go to. You know, we know all the requirements now. So I just wanted to mention that. I, you know, again, so if there's anyone listening in here, again, CBP is trying very hard to make sure that all LCBs are aware of the fact that the requirements are in effect.
And again, to my point, I hope we can get CBP to just like blast this video and this podcast out to everybody. But anyway, wishful thinking. So thank you, Paula. So let me take Trudy. And Trudy, I'm going to take everything everyone else said and kind of let's try to wrap it up here, or not wrap it up like we're going to end with you, but we'll have some final comments from everyone. But let's put a little bow on it and say, what I wanted to talk about, Trudy, was, so I've known you for many, many years, and we know that you've done training on so many different formats. You do e-learning, you do seminars, you do webinars, you've done appearances at conferences, etc. So you're covering a big, wide spectrum of training. I understand that they all don't weigh the same, right? Or how does that work when you're accrediting those courses?
Okay, very good question, because again, there's going to be a lot of questions on what qualifies, what doesn't qualify. How do I figure this out? So going back to what Paula mentioned and that we all talk about consistently, all of us in the group, is we always go back to the criteria, right? So we first have to make sure that the content that you're providing meets the 4 criteria. Then after we figure that out, then we have to figure out how much content time is there, how much contact time. Remember, Elizabeth. Why am I having problems with people's names today? Elizabeth was talking about 26 hours versus 12 hours. So that's other than the content itself, that it meets the criteria, we also have to figure out how much contact time there is. And based on that contact time, that's the number of credits you're going to get. So 30 minutes is half of a credit, and an hour is a full credit. And of course, you do the math going up from there. So that's the main way. That's the main way. That is the way it is going to be. And again, we're all going to be consistent. So Marianne said that at the beginning. We're all trying to be very consistent as a team, that we're all looking at the same thing. So it doesn't matter who you go to. We should all come up with the same response and results as to if it accredits and how many points you get for the accreditation.
Perfect. So now let's talk about content itself. If I go to X conference, it doesn't matter, ICPA, or NEI, or I'm sorry, NEI, NCBFAA, or and any number, AAEI and NAFTZ, any of those, we have usually there's tracks, and there's also different topics. So not traditionally, but logically, licensed customs brokers are for importing, right? So what if they have an export track? How are you all weighing anything export related?
Okay, so I'll actually read you what criteria number 3 is, which is actually online. And it says, any activity that provides understanding of U.S. imports and exports.
Perfect.
So as long as it pertains to U.S. import, question answered, easy. Stick to what we spent 3 days banging out.
Right, exactly. That's awesome. So that's perfect. That is very clear, because there's some people who maybe have their license, and of course they're working for a company, and their focus is exporting, and that's all they take training on. They're like, darn, now I need to take an import class. That's not the case.
Yes. As long as it pertains to the understanding of U.S. imports and exports, you're good.
Awesome. Okay. So we're running into about an hour here of recording. So I'm going to, in the interest of not keeping all of you here so much longer, I'm going to do the Brady Bunch thing here and bring everybody in. And just ask for any final words from anyone. But I do want to say this, as an educator, because of what we do here at Global Training Center, we like to say that just because you are, and I just said that right now, if you're an exporting, and you're going to take a bunch of exporting classes or whatever, one of the neat things that I kind of think of this is that, for example, what if you've never done drawback in your life, but there's this cool class that you can take and maybe learn a little bit about drawback, and you can just earn the points? Why not take it to expand your learning knowledge, your maybe even your services or your expertise and your skills? So anyway, I just wanted to throw that in as a last thing of a kind of a pitch for educators that offer a wide range of classes, and for the learners to also realize, maybe this is something cool that I can do. Maybe this is something different that I can do. But Any one of you or all of you that may have any final words?
So two things, when we got together, we really did go through the agendas of real programs in the past to test the criteria and had a real debate on what should be in and what should be out. And one of the big things that we concluded, CBP felt, at least in this first triennial period, is that courses offered by academic institutions would not be accredited, and also programs outside of the United States. So the World Customs Organization just had a conference on technology. The WTO has a public forum every year. Those would not count for accreditation. That's where our program is slightly different. So, for example, we do accept those, but for the broker education providers can submit a course that we would accredit for both the CBP continuing education requirement according to the 4 criteria and the calculation of hours that CBP has provided to us, and also our Global Trade Professionals Global Pathways Program and Certification Program.
I would encourage brokers to, one, financially plan. There may be some courses that have costs and others that may not. I would encourage them to plan their time. As Marianne said, our program, our platform hosts both the LCB continuing education program and our own global pathways program. We are also offering the ability, if you take LCB programs, that you can add it on to the global pathways, and it would store your documentation. So you are going to be potentially audited by customs. They have said that specifically. You will need to retain your documents and have them available if you are the subject of an audit. If you've been through reg audit, you understand the process. So we encourage you to maintain any documentation and any evidences of your training for a 6-year period.
Yes. I would just encourage you not to wait till the end of the year, kind of like what Cynthia was touching on. I know you're going to, because I get your emails. So if you could do me a favor, I would say, please don't wait till the end of the year. And then also when you're done with an event within the first 2 weeks, please print your certificate. Please enter your points. Please get it all taken care of, because it is inevitable that here at about 3 weeks, my inbox is going to be full of people that want their certificate from, last fall. It just becomes, if you don't, I think that's going to be the most important thing, right? Is staying ahead of it. I think so, right? Like staying on top of it and doing it, like you said, Cynthia, do it. It's not an unreasonable amount of numbers. It's really not. It's manageable in bite-sized pieces. But just stay on top of it. That would be my, and that's just actually to help myself too. So stay on top of it. Do it early.
Thank you. I would say that if you're listening to this podcast, you probably don't fall into the group that thinks that this is burdensome, because this requirement is really providing a higher level of respect for the work that we do in this space. And so, I hope that you receive this as a gift for your career, and a recognition of the professionalism. And I think that over time, having this requirement of continuing education is going to raise professionalism across the board. And those who are not willing to do so, I think that they will kind of fall away. And so we may have a different environment in the next 6 or 9 years of who's willing to step up the game and to maintain the certificate. The license. If you come with the NEI and you're aligned with our CCS and CES programs, CCS and CES, you can track your transcripts with us, which is pretty neat. And as I said earlier, the criteria is aligned. So if it's accredited for CCS and CES, it's automatically accredited for LCB.
I want to mention how important it is as a broker to make sure that if you are taking a course, that it is actually accredited and to make sure that you're getting the correct information from that educational provider. They will be providing you with a code. That's basically how CBP is going to trace back whether or not you attended a program. So be careful, make sure, and I think the CCS program through NEI is fantastic, but they are two different programs. Just because something is accredited for CCS doesn't mean that it's also accredited for continuing education. I think that will continue to be somewhat confusing, particularly in the beginning, but I think that will work itself out. But it is very important for the brokers just to make sure that the class you're taking is accredited, you're getting the right information. And I do want to just mention one other thing, not to end it on a bad note, but that certification is part of your triennial reporting. And Cynthia talked a little bit about that. But you need to make sure that when you file your triennial report, you certify that you've taken the required courses, you have the required credit hours, and be ready to provide that information to CBP if they ask you. And one other thing, if you don't do the certification when you file your triennial report, that is not completing your triennial report, and your license could be suspended, in some cases revoked. So again, not to be Debbie Downer ending the program on a low note, but people need to understand that this is an important requirement for CBP. So just understand that's part of your triennial report. If you file your triennial report and don't pay your fee, you haven't filed the report. It's the same idea. So just wanted to end on that. And I just want to thank Lalo again for the invitation to participate with the Fab Five. This has been great.
Again, everybody has done a great job of, giving our tips. And one thing I want to encourage our licensed customs brokers to do is actually reach out to your corporate trainers to see what information or what videos or online, their, self-paced training has information that is pertinent, and encourage them to reach out to one of us and get it certified and get it accredited. So that's another great way, because it's already there. You don't have to pay for it, and you have to take it anyway. So get it accredited.
Well, everyone, thank you. This is a lot of information. I know this is a very long episode, but I feel it's really important information. As the lady said, and during the session, the recording, is that not everybody knows. Not everybody's getting the information. It's just not out there sometimes, and it's difficult to distribute. Part of the problem could be that they've been talking about this for so long that they probably don't think this is real yet. You know what I mean? And so, but anyway, for right now, just thank you everyone for joining us on the panel. Thank you everyone for listening in, and please just keep this probably bookmarked or somehow, just so you understand a little bit of what all the rules and information are. By the way, this is also transcribed fully. You can go to our website, to globaltrainingcenter.com. On there somewhere, there's a menu navigation that goes to the podcast. So you can probably check the show notes, and you'll see a direct link to the website. There you can see the full transcript. So if you need to search it, or if you have a question or whatever, that would be a good place to do that. So you get not only the video and the audio on our website, but you also get the transcript. So good information. So thank you all for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed this show. And please reach out if you have any questions. I'm more than glad to help out here at Global Training Center. I feel like we know a lot only because we've been living this for a long time, getting accredited through informal accreditation, through CCS, CES, different other accreditors that also have programs. But now that it's formal, that required by the government, we feel like we had a very, very good head start than a lot of educators, and only because we've been doing this for so long. But just feel free to reach out. I'd be more than glad to help you out. But anyone here at Global Training Center can do the same. They can totally help you and answer any questions you might have. Thank you very much, and you all have a good rest of your day and rest of your week. Thank you very much for joining us. Simply Trade is brought to you by the generous contributions of Global Training Center. You can follow the show and GTC on LinkedIn or Twitter and other social networks. Make sure you check out the show notes in the description for a full rundown of today's show with all the important links. Also, make sure that you share this with a friend and subscribe on your favorite streaming platform. We really like hearing from you. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to rate and review wherever you listen to this podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the show or would like to sponsor Simply Trade or suggest any topic you would like for us to discuss, please contact us via email at simplytrade@globaltrainingcenter.com or you can DM us on Twitter at SimplyTradePod. Thank you again for the privilege of your time. Happy trading. Simply Trade is not a law firm or an advisor. The topics and discussions conducted by Simply Trade hosts and guests should not be considered and is not intended to substitute legal advice. You should seek appropriate counsel for your own situations. These conversations and information are directed towards listeners in the United States for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only and should not be substituted for legal advice. No listener or viewer of this podcast should act or refrain from acting on the basis of information on this podcast without first seeking legal advice from counsel. Information on this podcast may not be up to date depending on the time of publishing and the time of viewership. The content of this posting is provided as is. No representations are made that the content is error-free. The views expressed in or through this podcast are those of the individual speakers, not those of their respective employers or Global Training Center as a whole. All liability with respect to actions taken or not taken based on the contents of this podcast are hereby expressly disclaimed.